I have this wonderful book by Lakdawala entitled In the Zone. What is this book about? It's about the greatest strikes in history, practically when champions start to win and then they are simply unstoppable. The part which is interesting is the fact that the book has something like 13 chapters. Each chapter is dedicated to one of these champions. Obviously, it starts with Morphy, and then he goes with other champions of that period up to some challengers, and then of course it goes to Lasker, Capablanca, Fischer, Botvinnik, etc., Karpov and Kasparov, obviously. Um, in the end, the last chapter, if I'm not wrong, it's about Caruana. No, the previous last chapter, before the last chapter is Caruana. The last chapter, obviously, is Magnus Carlsen. I the book is very interesting because the author has done really a lot of research, and I would like to show you a game from chapter 3, which is dedicated to Pillsbury. Pillsbury practically was one of the contenders to the fourth world champion, Steinitz, and he was really strong. I have another book about Pillsbury, and this game is game 25, Harry Nelson Pillsbury versus Amos Byrne. Notice that Amos Byrne, you may not know it, but it has something like a huge chess biography that is in 2 volumes. So imagine this. These books are big like the chessboard. So they are really huge, full of games. They are interesting in the sense that they really are historical work. So also Amos Byrne was a very important player of that period. Of course, today we only know about Magnus Carlsen, we know about Kasparov, and maybe our chess knowledge doesn't go back in time. Why? Because the game that I'm going to present to you was played in 1895. 1895. So Harry Nelson Pillsbury was white, Amos Byrne was black. It starts with d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, knight f6, and now there is bishop g5. As to the entire advisability of this, opinions differ, brought James Mason, a player ranked in the top 6 in the world in the 1880s. Mason believed that for knight f3 was superior, and that it would be better to wait to see which square was better for the dark square bishop. Today, of course, we feel confidently armed, since present-day theory sanctions this perfectly playable move. Okay, bishop e7, e3, castle, knight f3, and b6. Today is more popular a Tartakova line, which starts with h6, bishop h4, and b6. Okay, so there is a little difference in the move order. So after b6, rook c1, bishop b7, c takes d5, and knight takes d5. Mason wanted to recapture with the e-pawn, which fit the classical mindset of the day, which demanded that both sides should only occupy the center with their pawns. Byrne's move is perfectly playable. Okay. So, if you wanted to recapture with with the pawn. Yeah, maybe here one could look into Mason games and see if he played a game recapturing with a e pawn. Okay, bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, and the knight takes d5. Today, instead of this move, the author says bishop d3 is the main move played in this position instead of knight takes d5. Bishop takes d5 is what was played in the game, but also e takes d5 is perfectly playable. Bishop d3 and rook c8. Here there is a diagram. Generally, when we see a diagram, it seems that the author is trying to tell us something, to pay attention. So the check might be fairly venture, but bishop takes a2 would be bad for the bishop. Could be so shut in as to have no good escape. Mason's assessment was correct in one line and incorrect in the other. So here the author shows us two lines. He says, instead of rook c8 that was played in the game, what if black played queen b4? And here it shows a line because it says that queen b4 is a dubious move, not so good, and proves it through this. Queen d2, queen takes d2, king takes d2, rook c8, and rook c3. Black has a tough ending since white applies pressure down the c file. And this is the evaluation of this position. Now we will see the next line in case takes bishop with taking a2. I will pause the video to put the position back where it was. Okay, we are back in the position of the diagram. Notice the diagram shows the position with rook c8, but now the question is, what happens if black would have taken on a2? And here it says that it's a bad move because white plays b3, queen a3, rook a1, and queen b2, knight d2, or defending again this, knight c6, bishop e4, and the knight b4. Wow, interesting. Bishop takes a8, rook takes a8, and now there is a castle, and black is in deep trouble. Notice that instead of rook takes a8, there is another line here, and maybe it can be interesting for some people, because you can ask yourself, this is my problem when I watch a book, because sometimes I ask myself some questions like, why black doesn't play knight takes c2, no? And the author analyzed also this one. Also this one is not so good, because king e2, rook takes a8, again, queen c1, good move, queen takes a1, queen takes a1, knight takes a1, rook takes a1, and bishop takes b3. After knight takes b3, the author says black doesn't have enough for the piece. Okay, so obviously we have a situation of 5 pawns against 7 pawns, and probably that's not enough to win the endgame. Also, if he has these 2 pass pawns. Notice that we are by move 21. So clearly, the move that we were starting was move 11. So we are 10 moves later, a lot of calculation. Okay. Okay. Now I will pause the video and return to the position in the diagram. Okay, so we are back in the position of the diagram. Black just played rook c8. And now it's white turn to move. Again, sometimes you must understand that diagram is good because it also gives you the chance to think. If you were white in this position, what would you play? Okay, so try to pause the video and find out. The game continues with e4, very good move, and black played bishop b7. Once more, the problem is that if you play the bishop takes a2 instead of bishop b7, what would you play as white? Try to pause and find out. Obviously, I will give you the move right away. Queen a4 and the bishop is trapped. Okay, because it goes here, you get it. Goes here, you get it. Goes here, you get it. Okay, so one pawn is not a good idea to get this pawn. And so after e4, bishop b7 is the right move. Castle, knight d7, queen e2, a6. Mr. Byrne should have played c5 now, and this was Mason. It seems this game was commented by this player, Mason, that was also a good player of that period. And the author says Mason was correct. After this is the move to play, c5, he gives a line that I will not give you to avoid to annoy you and bore you to death. But keep in mind that when you get the book, you will watch all these lines. Rook c3. Here there is another move which is stronger, and the author says e5 was much stronger. Let's see. So rook c3, c6. This is dubious. This move is like an eagle who thinks, why fly when I can walk there? Once again, there was no reason to avoid c5. This makes sense because if you think about it, c6 blocks everything. So this kind of inactivity or passivity is not a good idea, right? How did Pillsbury continue? Rook f c1 and b5. Byrne continues to blaspheme his position norm. Once more, c5 was the one to play, the move to play. Notice that today, when you analyze with an engine, sometimes you will find that there are some recurrent moves that you should have played, and so it becomes evident up to a moment that then is not playable anymore, and it's too late, and the game is kind of doomed. Okay. Now it's white turn. Try to think what would you play as white. And white played queen e3. Pillsbury seizes control over c5. And in fact, he has a lot of pieces going for that. And Byrne begins to feel the squeeze. Rook c7, queen f4. Pillsbury, a classic attacker, creeps his pieces closer to black king. I prefer the immediate taking at e5. So the author preferred this move. Pillsbury, that was a world-class player, played this move. Notice that while it might be true that players of that time were not as strong as today because of the opening, in the middle game we don't know. Because in the middle game they might have been very strong because it's a calculation. It's understanding of a position and it's calculation. So rook a c8, it's how black continued in this position, and finally white plays e5. What may be called the self-evident intent of this is most unaccountably ignored by his opponent. The conclusion is reached by Mr. Pillsbury in about the most forcible manner possible. Um, the translation is that this move targets h7. Okay, so that's what is the reason why it was so important. Okay, and now again at this point you see that black finally plays c5 and it's a blunder. At this point finally black plays c5, but this point is a blunder. And here there is a diagram. It says further support or protection of the king is imperative. Knight f8 seemed the best. After this unfortunate oversight, black's is really hopeless, a hopeless case. Nevertheless, the ending is very instructive. And here it says, so black played c5, which was a blunder. Here it says exercise, because here there is a diagram. Combination alert. The nature of opportunity is that it refuses to wait. What did black overlook on his last move? So you pause the video, you try to find what would you play as white. So again, you see these reviews, they show you a book, but in reality you can use them to grow as a chess player because you need to think, right? So what would you play as white? He played bishop takes h7, the famous Greek gift, okay? And now white has a winning attack. Principle. Distance fails to insulate us from harm when our opponent's bishop points in the direction of our king from a distance. This Greek gift, sacrifice on h7, while brilliant in Pillsbury day, is merely throat stuff in the present day, almost to the point of banality, since the vast majority of club-level players would see it. Don't take our present-day knowledge for granted. We were gifted such ideas from the great players of the past. So this is also a reason why we watch classical games, because as chess players we grow, and we grow through the standing on the shoulders of giants. Right? King takes h7. Black king is like that soldier from Saving Private Ryan, the very first one out of the bar, who takes a bullet between the forehead, even before he places one foot on the Normandy beach. Declining is of no help either, so if you would have played king f8, he wouldn't have helped either, and here there is a line, okay, that shows why and how white wins. How does the attack continue? Knight g5, king g8, and after, what do you think white is going to play? White is going to play rook h3. Amazing. The threat obviously is rook h8 if he takes queen h4, and then there is a checkmate down there. Queen e8, trying to give an escape route to the king, and here there is more analysis of what could have happened, what should have been played, and blah 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 by the book, and you will see. Queen h4, king f8, and now obviously you must avoid that he escapes, right? So what would you play as white? Try to find out what would you play as white. If you found it out, it's knight h7, because it did check and block the diagonal. King g8, and obviously now again, what is the continuation? Now that you have blocked the diagonal, however, you need to give checkmate. If you just return back, we repeat the moves and we don't do nothing, right? So how do you play now? Now it's very easy. It's knight f6 check. And here is obviously, what can you play? You can only play king f8. Why? Because if you play g takes f6, queen h8 is checkmate, right? Knight takes e8, king takes e8, and queen g5. You see that he continuously wants to block that diagonal so it cannot escape, and you want to give checkmate, right? So what did black play? Black played c takes d4, rook h8, knight f8, and now you need to find another combination. It says, exercise, combination alert. Black's thorny king is no match for white's refrigerator-sized queen. White to play and force mate in 4 moves. So, pause the video, try to find the way to be checkmate in 4 moves, okay? I think it's pretty evident how to do it, but again, because I have done my homework, the tactics, so it's clear that the checkmate probably will be in the 8, honestly, next time. Or maybe I have seen this combination when I did the tactic training. I don't know. Rook takes c7, and now obviously rook takes c7. At this point, you need to misplace that king, and so you sacrifice the rook for giving the checkmate, right? And this is over. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the game. I hope you will eventually buy this book, read it all, become one of the greatest attackers too, because obviously we are learning a lot from these games. And nothing, I honestly like this book. I really find it pleasant. If someone wants other example games from this book, because there are more than 90 games. No, sorry, 117. So a lot of games. Clearly, you are getting a collection of well annotated games, and it's worth it, the price.